With so many of the top business schools that have been connecting with us through the CentreCourt MBA Festival, why limit your MBA experience to just one school? When we start to dig deeper, you'll find that many of the top business school programs offer exchanges, and for some, that provides an opportunity to gain valuable international experience. I'm delighted to welcome Nicole Veleasquez, who is a UT Austin McCombs graduate from 2015. Nicole, thank you very much for being with us from Hong Kong.
Thank you.
During Nicole's studies, she did the exchange program with the London Business School, and also a fascinating preparation over a semester for a trip that a number of you made to West Africa and to Ghana to look at sort of different multicultural styles of leadership, which I'm guessing is now playing out in the senior manager strategy role that you play at Starbucks in the Asia Pac region. So perhaps just a little bit about your background and what's brought you to Hong Kong today.
Yeah, I moved to Hong Kong last January. I had been with Starbucks since I graduated, about 3.5 years in a variety of roles. So working both in the core business and in innovation, and was really keen both with my going back to school with my MBA about getting international experience as well as in my career, and knowing that that's just table stakes for being a leader. And so I had been talking with my colleagues at Starbucks for some time, and an opportunity came up. It's one of those things where you talk about it and you talk about it for a really long time, and then suddenly it happens and you have to make the decision, and then 2 months later you live in a different country. And I took that role, and it was actually a product role. So I spent most of my time at Starbucks working on new product development, and actually only recently transitioned to strategy within the last 4 months, and have been now looking not just across the organization, but across the 14 markets that our office oversees in Asia Pacific. So it's been an opportunity for me to broaden what I've been doing for the last 3.5 years, and also go back to some of my coursework from business school, back to my strategy classes and frameworks, and pull out a product a little bit. So it's been a nice reflection.
Well, Austin, of course, has been an extraordinary growth story of the last 15, 20 years. I mean, there's more live music than you can listen to. There's more Amy's ice cream than would be good for us. But of course, with Apple setting up its second HQ there, Dell, I mean, there's the whole tech scene, whether it's the energy as well. So what was it for you that really drew you to McCombs?
Yeah, I think I was actually drawn by the city for sure. I'm a Texas native, so there's once it's in your blood, it's there forever. But I think a big part of it was actually the city and the role of the program in the city. So the Austin is big, but it's still a smaller city, both in Texas and within the region. And the program is big, and you have the whole support of the University of Texas system behind you, and the brand name behind that. And so I think the doors that it unlocked within the city of Austin. I got to intern with a woman who was starting a green juice company, probably easier than I would have in San Francisco, where I was coming from, and you have Stanford and Berkeley and people knocking on doors of startups every day. And so I think that balance was really something that drew me in. I think, though, when I really think back about my decision, it was the people that I met. So I tried to talk to as many people as possible. I didn't really know a ton of people who had MBAs as I was looking to go back to school. So I was, picking up the phone and calling strangers with regularity. And I think all of the people that I met from Texas really had a warmth about them. And that was something that appealed to me. I was coming from the nonprofit sector, and I wanted to transition into for-profit and sort of expand my scope. And I knew that would be something that would require trying new things, learning new things, pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, and I wanted to do that in a safe environment. And I found that to be true in the program. I think one thing that just sort of was a mantra, I think, amongst my classmates, if something good happens to you, if you get the job that you're looking for, if you do well on an exam, if you get elected to a position, like all those things the better you do, the better we all look. So the way like, it strengthens our community, it strengthens what we're capable of doing, the future network that we have. And I think that really helped me find that confidence to push myself in those 2 years.
It's interesting that you actually had the input of a number of voices before applying it. Some of the other interviewees have talked about the consistency, how they felt that either that collaborative spirit, already the way that people responded, that they saw that in multiple conversations that they had. And obviously that played through into the experience at McCombs itself. So when you then think about packing a suitcase and spending a semester in London, how does, obviously a great experience at one of Europe's top schools, how does that then sort of fit into the overall flow of the McCombs experience? Because you've built these bonds, then you head off, and I'm sure others went to other campuses around the world to all then come back again.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think there was I did have this slight tumult of, am I going to miss out on something precious that I came here for this trade-off? And I think part of it sort of goes back to that community of people being really supportive. It was a sort of competitive system to apply to LBS, and I think once I had the opportunity, everyone was like, you have to, it's just like so encouraging, and I'm going to come visit you. And, it I think almost sort of strengthened some relationships. And I ended up going actually with one other woman in my program. So that bond was strengthened. And then there were a few others who were at LSC as well, and others studying abroad in Europe. And not only expanded the people I was able to meet in Barcelona, you just get to do more when I think you push outside of that comfort zone. And I think the thing that I wanted, the trade-off, knowing that I was going to miss out on that semester, I think the trade-off that I wanted was really changing my frame and maximizing spending these 2 years. It's sort of like a luxury you never get again, spending 2 years just on yourself to learn and reflect and think about what you want to do in this world. And I wanted to maximize that by making sure I was exposing myself to that global community that LBS has, different professors and different ways of learning, different ways of approaching course material. I took a pricing class there that we had this lecturer come who had priced the London Olympics. It was so fascinating. And that's something that, as much like there's just things that you get in Texas that you don't get in London, and vice versa. And I think they were both complements to each other.
Right. And it goes so much beyond educational tourism in terms of the experience that you then had in West Africa, in Ghana. I mean, this was a 10-day trip that you really planned in terms of what you were then looking to understand about different styles of leadership. It went from the Minister of Finance to microfinance and, women entrepreneurs. So how does that fit, and how does that continue to help you in the international career that you've now pursued?
Yes, I think all of those, I had limited experience, certainly professionally before that. I worked for a US-based company before business school, and I had some exposure in undergrad, but really limited. And I think, I'm not sure, I would like to think I would have had the confidence to dive head on into this Hong Kong role without that experience, but I'm not sure. And I think it at least made it more approachable. Starbucks invested in a cultural training when I came here to sort of level set on, here's how some things are done, here's how to eat lunch, just basics to more complex, how to approach a negotiation with a supplier, for example. But I felt very confident going into that because I think of I could reflect on a lot of the coursework I had done in my Global Connections class to prepare to go to Ghana. I had taken some management classes at LBS that had classmates from across the world who had different approaches to management, who were bringing their perspectives to case studies. And I think I was able to draw on that, even if I couldn't point to the specific example that I was drawing on. It was sort of a training that I had been in that I could use in having those conversations. I certainly still had to learn a lot here, but I think it's been a little bit easier than some of my colleagues.
Right. It's interesting because you might have a sort of a plan, and as you moved from your marketing to a more strategic role, how certain aspects of the program, you never quite know when they're going to come back and have this influence, whether it's to give you the confidence to apply for that role, that leap of faith. So if you were to then give advice to others, looking at McCombs, going to one of the world's top business schools, what would it be?
Yeah, I think that sort of is exactly the bullseye of how I would shape my advice, which is, I think you have to be focused. I think I remember some of the best advice I got going into my MBA was, focus on 3 things that are the reasons you're going. One professional, one for the world, and one for yourself. And I tried to do that going in, and I think doing that is the right thing, but I think continuing to go back to those goals and revisit them, given the new information that you've since learned, is probably the right approach. It's the same with each new job or each new change in your career. I think I'm in a very uncertain place right now. I'm used to producing products. I'm used to the work that I do having a very tangible, measurable output that I can point to, in a Starbucks store and say I did that. And now my value is measured in the effectiveness of my colleagues and in the quality of the strategy that I put forward. And that's creating a whole new measure for myself. And I think those moments where you say, okay, these are the things I've been focused on. What new information do I have to readjust and say, this is where I want to go from here, I think is a good approach going in your career, but also definitely an MBA where you're sort of assaulted with opportunity and many, many directions.
Well, I guess you'll still be drawing on some of those strategic lessons as with Starbucks in Hong Kong and around the world sort of faces the realities of coming out of lockdown. That's going to be a fascinating challenge. I love the mantra that you described earlier at McCombs, the success or the accomplishments of one are success for all of us. I think that's a beautiful way to frame the collaborative sort of spirit that you enjoyed. And I feel very fortunate that we were able to find out your story and your successes. You're a great reflection on the school. So Nicole, thank you very much for joining us at CentreCourt. Stay well.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. You too.
Enjoy the next steps of your adventure.
Thank you.